Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The ink under her skin. Sophie didn't wake up screaming. She woke up listening, not because she heard something, but because she heard nothing. Not a hum, not a drip, not even her own breath at first. Just a thick, unnatural silence that pressed against her ears like cotton dipped in dread. Then came the panic. Her mouth wouldn't open. Her lips felt sealed, dry, suffocating. Her lungs began to burn as she tried to gasp, but her breath hit resistance. Something, plastic, was pulled tight around her face. The world was dark. Her body was stiff, arms locked behind her, wrists hot and burning from what she quickly realized was duct tape. Her ankles were bound the same. The air tasted sour, artificial. She kicked once, twice, but the chair she was in barely moved. Terror rose sharp and fast in her chest. Sophie tried to scream again, and this time she got a sound out, muffled, weak, but real. The plastic over her face wasn't suffocating entirely. There was a small slit near her mouth. Someone had calculated. Her panic, given her just enough air to keep her alive. She was supposed to feel this. She was supposed to know. That's when she felt the burning on her side, raw, wet, tender. Sophie didn't know what it was yet, but it wasn't there before. Whatever had been carved or inked into her ribs still felt fresh. A sting that went bone deep. The silence finally broke with a click, a soft mechanical sound. A speaker. Somewhere in the shadows of the room, an old intercom sputtered to life, followed by a voice, not loud, not threatening, childlike, calm, almost proud. "You said you didn't want to be followed anymore," it said. "So I came closer." Then laughter, slow, guttural, not the voice from before, deeper, something human but wrong. Like the lungs that powered it were too big, too hollow. Sophie jerked against her restraints. Her muscles strained, her wrists blistering under the tape. The plastic fogged from her panicked breathing. She couldn't tell where she was. No windows, no sense of time. Just that bulb overhead, swinging faintly, casting shadows that looked like they were breathing, and then slowly the room took shape. The walls were close, too close. It wasn't a house. It felt underground. A basement maybe, concrete floor, old tile, cracked. In the corner, behind a mesh of wire and dirt, was a single space heater humming low, but it wasn't on. What she did see stopped her breath. A wall. No, a shrine and of photographs, framed, neatly arranged, dozens, all of her. Sophie asleep. Sophie drinking coffee. Sophie crying in the bathroom mirror. Sophie talking to a stranger at the gas station. Every photo was intimate, invaded, impossible. Some were from months ago, some were from her new life. The one she built after she thought she'd escaped, the one she started after she disappeared. She remembered the night she left, 6 months ago. A final incident, a near break-in that her landlord dismissed as just noise. Her ex-boyfriend, Nathan, had already been questioned by the police multiple times. He was obsessed, yes, creepy, yes, but never violent, not provably. The cops said she had no proof, that nothing could be done unless he broke the law, so Sophie broke herself instead. She deleted everything, got a new phone, new name, new job. She cut ties with everyone but her mother and her therapist, both of whom had helped her disappear. She moved states, changed her hair, learned how to check under her car at night. She became a ghost to survive a man who would not stop watching, and for 6 months she was free. Until this. Her phone rang. The sound sliced through the thick silence like a scream. But it wasn't coming. From her. It was coming from behind the wall. Somewhere in the dark, she knew the ringtone, Beethoven's Für Elise. Her ex had set that as his ringtone back when they were still together, before she saw the messages, the late-night calls to unknown numbers, the way he watched her, even when they were in the same room. That phone had been gone for months. She left it behind when she vanished. How was it here now? Tears ran hot into her ears as she shook, the plastic sucking against her face, pulling at her skin. She was hyperventilating. Her chest was tightening. A door creaked open in the distance. Not loudly, deliberate, controlled, a whisper of movement as if someone wanted her to hear it. Then came footsteps. Bare, quiet, just skin on concrete. 1 T, 2, 3. Then silence again. Her body stiffened. She could feel him there, not see him, not hear him, but she knew he was in the room now. Then, breath on her neck, a voice, soft as death, right against her ear. Look closer. It's not a tattoo. It's a map. The lights cut out, and Sophie screamed. She woke up again, if she'd even been unconscious. The difference between panic and dreaming had blurred. Her head throbbed, her mouth was dry. But the plastic was gone, sliced off at the sides and left dangling from one ear like dead skin. The lights were back on, dim, yellow, and she was alone again, still bound to the chair, still naked, except for the gauze on her ribcage. Something sat on the floor in front of her, a mirror, big, heavy, framed like an antique, gold-chipped edges, the kind you'd find in your grandmother's attic. The angle was just enough for her to see her side. Her ribs, the gauze was gone, and there it was, the ink, a jagged black line across her ribcage. Not words, not a symbol, but a shape, like rivers intersecting. Roads? No, not roads. Floor plans. She blinked. It was a map. She didn't recognize it, but it was familiar in the worst way. Like a dream you half remember after waking from a nightmare. Then, in red ink, a small X marked near the bottom, right above a line that looked like stairs. It hit her. It hit her so hard she felt herself go cold. The map was of this place, and the X, it marked where she was sitting. She had been turned into a marker. Suddenly the intercom clicked again. "I made you part of the house," the voice said. "Now, no matter where you go, you'll always be here," she cried. Not because of the ink or the pain or the photos, but because the part of her that believed she had escaped was gone now, dead, and she had no idea how many more pieces he planned to take. The house that knew her name. There was something strange about the silence. Not the kind Sophie had woken up to before, that choking, plastic-wrapped silence of terror. This was different. This silence listened. It had a presence, a pulse. As if the walls of this place weren't just holding her. They were aware of her. She stared at the map inked into her skin. The pain was still fresh, the lines red and black against her pale ribs. Her breath hitched every time she looked at it, but it was more than just a symbol of violation now. It was a message, a clue, a game. She looked at the mirror again. It hadn't moved, but something was different. She couldn't place it at first, until she noticed the reflection. A new photograph had appeared on the wall behind her. She twisted her neck, slowly, dreading what she might see. There it was, the newest frame, still crooked, still glinting in the dim light. But the photo inside, it was taken only minutes ago. It was her, sitting in the chair, tape on her wrists. Gauze peeled back, ink exposed, a live photo. Someone had taken it while she was unconscious, or worse, while she had been awake, screaming, not knowing where the camera was hidden. She felt bile rise in her throat. "Why are you doing this?" "To me," she croaked. Her voice was dry, cracked like a desert wind. She didn't expect an answer, but one came anyway. The intercom crackled again. "Because you said you wanted to be forgotten." She froze. The voice was different this time, still male, still distorted but softer, almost familiar. "You erased yourself, Sophie, but not from me. Never from me." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. That phrase, she hadn't heard it. In years, The first time she told Nathan she wanted to disappear, they'd been sitting on the hood of his car in the middle of a thunderstorm. She was drunk, half laughing, hair stuck to her face. She said she wanted to vanish, to stop being someone everyone expected things from. She wanted to go blank. She had no idea he was taking her literally. Sophie looked back at the map. The X marked the bottom of the house. But there were other lines, corridors, rooms, arrows, a stairwell, marked in faded black, leading upward. 2 floors total, maybe 3. She shifted in the chair. Her legs had gone numb, but her wrists were beginning to bleed beneath the tape. The sharp sting was proof she was still here, still in her body. She leaned forward, then threw her weight hard to the side. The chair toppled. She hit the ground with a dull thud. Air burst from her lungs, and pain exploded in her shoulder. But she didn't care. She twisted, kicked, slammed the side of the chair against the floor again and again. On the third hit, something cracked. One of the wooden legs snapped, giving her just enough slack to roll onto her back. She wriggled, biting her bottom lip until she tasted blood, and finally, mercifully, one arm freed itself. It took another 5 minutes to undo the rest of the tape. Her skin was shredded, red with friction burns, but she was free, free in a place she couldn't escape from. She pulled herself to her feet, staggering. Her legs were pins and needles. Her breath was ragged. The room was still quiet, except for the occasional flicker of the light above her. The mirror remained in front of her, and now, scrawled across the bottom, in lipstick freshly smeared, were 4 words. "You're in the walls." Sophie stumbled backward, heart slamming in her chest. What the hell did that mean? She turned and scanned the room. It was sealed, no windows, only one metal door on the far wall, no visible locks, no handle from the inside. She crept toward it, trying not to step on the broken leg of the chair. She pressed her ear against the door. Nothing. Then 3 slow knocks, not from her side, from inside the wall to her right. She backed away so fast she almost tripped over her own feet. Her breath caught in her throat. She stared at the wall, waiting for movement, a crack, a whisper, nothing. Then she noticed the tiles. The wall wasn't solid. There was a seam, faint but definitely there, running along the edge near the floor. A hidden panel. She crouched, ran her fingers along the edge. Click. The tile shifted slightly beneath her hand. Then, with a soft creak, a portion of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow, pitch-black crawl space, not even 3 feet high. The air that drifted out was thick, warm, and smelled of mildew and copper, and inside there was light, a string of tiny bulbs like Christmas lights taped along the walls, and photos, hundreds of them, taped to the inside of the crawl space. More of her, but not just her this time. Other women, some smiling, some afraid. One looked barely conscious. Sophie's stomach turned. One photo in particular caught her eye. A girl with red hair and a sleeve tattoo of birds. Sophie had seen her before, in a missing persons flyer stuck to a power pole near her new apartment. She remembered stopping to read it. She thought about it for days. She was 18. Her name was Janelle. This was not the same girl from the flyer. This girl looked hollow. Her eyes were ringed with purple. Her smile was forced. She looked like she was pretending to still be human. Sophie reached inside, peeled the photo off, and flipped it over. Written in smeared ink. She was the prototype. You were the final draft. Sophie felt her legs weaken. A noise echoed from the hall behind her, mechanical, a motor. The door was unlocking. She had seconds to decide, stay and confront whoever was coming, or crawl into the space that had held others like her, and maybe escape. She chose the dark. The crawl space was tighter than she expected. Her knees scraped against rough wood and exposed nails. Her elbows ached from dragging herself forward. But she kept going. The walls pulsed with heat. Her breathing echoed around her. Then she heard it again, behind her, inside the space, crawling, not fast, but steady. She didn't look back. She couldn't. The bulbs lit her way until she reached a small opening on the side. She peeked through. Another room, this one a bedroom, not a prison cell. A fully decorated, carefully arranged bedroom. Dusty rose wallpaper, a dresser, a bed with stuffed animals, a closet door slightly ajar. It looked like a teenager's room frozen in time. Sophie pushed the panel and slipped inside. Her bare feet hit carpet. She exhaled shakily and turned, ceiling, the crawl space behind her. But she wasn't alone. On the dresser, an old television flickered on, static, then an image, her, from earlier, sitting in the chair, looking into the mirror, bleeding. A camera was still watching her, still recording, still feeding this sick man's theater. But then the static returned, and the image changed. Now it showed this room, the bedroom, and on the bed, someone was lying down. Sophie turned slowly, but the bed was empty. The TV buzzed again, and then spoke. This was her room, the one who came before you. She slept here for 72 days. Sophie stared at the screen, horrified. She asked for you by name, even though she never met you. The screen went black. Then from the closet, a faint sound, breathing. Sophie's legs moved on their own. She inched toward the closet, every instinct screaming to run, but something held her. Some thread of truth just beyond her understanding. She had to see. She gripped the edge of the closet door and flung it open. Darkness, then slowly from the back corner, a soft, broken whisper. "He's not alone in here." Sophie screamed, stumbled back, and tripped on the edge of the bed. When she hit the floor, something was in her hand, a photograph. She hadn't noticed it before, but now it was there, crushed between her fingers. Another girl, long black hair, bruised eye. Mouth sewn shut in the image with black thread. On the back, she tried to scream too. The lights cut out again. The intercom hissed, "You're getting warmer." The names beneath the floorboards. The lights came back on with a buzz, a dull, flickering hum that felt more like an insult than illumination. Sophie blinked hard, heart still hammering in her chest, fists clenched tightly around the photograph she'd found on the floor. The girl with the sewn mouth stared back at her from the photo. A grotesque warning. A silenced scream forever, frozen in time. She stood slowly, knees shaking. The closet door remained open. Nothing stirred inside now. The voice that had whispered from the shadows, "He's not alone in here," was gone, like it had never existed. But Sophie knew it had. Someone had been in there, or maybe something. The television clicked back on. This time, no static, just text. "Do you want to know his real name?" Sophie stared at the screen, trembling. She didn't move, didn't answer, but the screen did. Before he became Nathan, he was called Jeremy. Before Jeremy, he was nobody. He's taken more than just your face. He's made a life out of becoming people, copying them, wearing them. More images flickered to life. Grainy, different faces, different bodies, but all with one thing in common: the eyes, wide, empty, watching. "He doesn't just stalk," the screen continued. "He becomes what you fear, and then makes you love him for it." Sophie felt sick. Every memory of Nathan, the man she thought she'd known, suddenly felt like a costume. His laugh, his taste in books, his childhood stories. None of it had been real. He had been studying her from the very beginning, mimicking, echoing, like a mirror that only shows you what you want to see until it's too late. Suddenly, the television screen switched to a new image, a grainy feed from what looked like a live camera, a stairwell, cold metal, fluorescent light flickering, the crawl space. Something, or someone, was moving through it. Not crawling, standing, too tall for the space. Their heads scraped the ceiling as they moved, without bending. Bones didn't bend like that, limbs slightly wrong, head tilted, no eyes, and yet... Sophie felt it watching her. Then the screen cut to black. A final message appeared. Room 3 is waiting. Below it, a map appeared, the same layout as the one inked into her side. A new dot blinked at the second floor. Sophie didn't want to go, but the alternative, staying in this place, waiting for that thing to find her, was worse. She crept toward the door on the far side of the room. It was ajar now, open just enough to show a hallway bathed in amber light, lined with peeling floral wallpaper and uneven wooden floorboards. A whispering draft flowed from it, like the house was breathing. Sophie stepped through. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Every door she passed had something carved into the wood, names, dozens of them, some etched deep violently, others written in childish scrawl: Claire, Mel, Iris, Janelle, Abby, Sophie. Her name was already on one of them. Room 7. She didn't stop. The map in her memory, burned into her ribs, said room 3 was at the top of the stairs. Right side, second door. The staircase groaned under her weight as she ascended. Cobwebs hung from the railing like threads of old breath. Every step creaked like the house was warning her. She reached the second floor and turned the corner and froze. A man stood at the end of the hallway, not moving, not blinking. His head was tilted as if trying to figure out what she was. His skin looked wrong, too smooth, like wax pulled tight over something not quite human. And his face, it was Nathan's face, but younger, cleaner, like the version of him from a filtered photo or a dream. He smiled, wide, crooked. "You made it," he said. His voice wasn't right, slightly off, like a recording played at the wrong speed. Sophie stepped back. "What are you?" The man took a step forward, and something clicked in his knees, like a joint dislocating. "You made me. Every time you looked over your shoulder, every time you checked your locks, every time you said no and wondered if it was safe to leave your house the next day." Another step. The floorboards beneath his feet screamed. "I was born in your fear. I lived in your walls. But now," he smiled wider, "now I want to live in you." Sophie ran. She didn't think, didn't scream. Just ran down the hallway and slammed into room 3, slamming the door behind her and locking it. The pounding came instantly. Boom! 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 She backed away, gasping. The room was pitch black until the light clicked on by itself. It was a nursery, soft yellow walls, a rocking chair, a mobile of stars and moons spinning above a rusted crib, and on the floor, in red chalk, "Only mothers are allowed." Sophie blinked, confused, then horrified. There was something in the crib, a lump under. A dirty blanket. She approached slowly, pulled back the blanket. Inside was a doll, hand-stitched, human hair, black buttons for eyes. Its mouth was sewn shut, but moving beneath the thread, trying to speak. A note was pinned to its chest. She didn't want him, so he gave her to someone else. The closet door creaked open behind her. Sophie turned. A woman stood there. Half her face was gone, rotted. Her eye hung loose on its socket, swinging as she breathed. She wore a hospital gown, stained red and brown. Her stomach was stitched closed unevenly, like it had been torn open and poorly resewn. Her voice was barely human. "I named her Lucy," she whispered. But he called her Copycat. Sophie backed away. "What is this place?" The woman stepped forward, dragging a limp foot. "It's the house of those who vanished, the ones no one looked for, the ones whose stories became legends, not reports." Another step. The doll in the crib began to whimper. "We screamed until we bled, until we became part of the walls. You're still whole for now." She reached out with trembling fingers and gently touched Sophie's side, right over the map tattoo. "But you're not just marked. You're chosen." Then she smiled and whispered, "You're the last chapter." The door burst open behind them. Sophie turned just in time to see the man, Nathan's distorted imitation, lunge into the room. But the rotted woman moved fast, grabbing Sophie's wrist and dragging her toward the closet. "Go down," she hissed, "before he makes you love him." Sophie didn't argue. She dove into the closet just as the man screamed, not in pain, but in laughter. The closet had stairs, rotten wooden ones, narrow and spiraling. She descended into darkness, breath held, heart thudding, down, 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 until she reached a room filled with recordings, VHS tapes, hard drives, labeled with names and dates, dozens, maybe hundreds, stacked on shelves and crates, each marked with a name, each someone's story. There was a monitor on the table, still running, a video played. It showed her from weeks ago, reading on her couch, unaware of the camera, hidden in the vent, then brushing her teeth, then crying silently in her bathroom. Another tape loaded, another girl, the redhead from the flyer, Janelle. The video showed her breakdown, her escape attempt, her screaming into the floor. The camera never looked away. Sophie turned, tears blurring her vision. On the far wall was a door, the only one not labeled, just painted in red. "This way to remembering." She pushed it open. Inside was a mirror and nothing else. Sophie stared at herself, her face bruised, her ribs inked, her wrists bleeding, but her eyes still her own, and in the mirror, written in condensation, "Say your name, or become someone else." Her voice shook, but she spoke. "I'm Sophie Lane Walters." The lights blinked, and the walls screamed. "The house that remembers you." The mirror shattered, not with violence, but with intent. Cracks spiderwebbed across Sophie's reflection until it didn't look like her anymore. Until the face staring back had no eyes, just black, hollow sockets, and a mouth that kept smiling, even as it bled. She stumbled back, trembling. Behind her, the door she had entered through was gone. The walls no longer held shelves or tapes or even shadows, just soft, breathing darkness. And then a whisper. "You said your name, but do you remember who you are?" The floorboards rippled under her feet, like muscle beneath skin. The whole room pulsed. Sophie backed against the wall, gripping her arms. She felt the map tattoo still etched into her ribs like a warning, or an invitation. She thought of Nathan, or Jeremy, or whatever he really was. She thought of the girl in the closet, the stitched doll, the hallway of names carved in blood and wood. Every inch of this house screamed memory, but not hers. It fed on memory. It wore it, twisted it, replayed it, and now it was replaying hers. Because suddenly, Sophie wasn't in the mirror room anymore. She was standing in her old childhood bedroom, the pink lamp, the bookshelf of goosebumps and fairy tales, her favorite blanket with the stars. Her throat tightened. This wasn't just a copy. This was her room. Every crease in the wallpaper, every sticker on the nightstand. It smelled the same, that mix of lavender and night sweats and something warm. Her breath caught when she saw the figure on the bed, a little girl, her 6 years old, curled into a ball, crying softly. Sophie inched closer. Hey, it's okay." The child didn't look up, just kept whispering through tears. "He's watching me again." Sophie froze. The closet door in the corner creaked open, a sliver. Darkness, dense, humming, then a whisper. Same voice as before, from the first time she entered the house. He was always there, even then. Sophie's younger self turned suddenly, eyes wide, and then screamed. The lights went out. A scream echoed through the hallway. Adult Sophie's scream, not the child's. She was back in the hallway now, except it had changed. The wallpaper was gone. The doors were sealed over with flesh, pulsing, veiny, unnatural. The floor squelched beneath her shoes, and there, at the far end, stood him again. Nathan. But not Nathan. The skin was peeled. The grin was unbroken. He opened his arms like a lover waiting to embrace her. "You remember now, don't you?" he rasped. "I didn't come out of nowhere. I've been with you since the beginning." Sophie's mind reeled. That face in the closet when she was a child, that same tilt of the head, that same presence. He hadn't found her on Tinder. He had been following her for years, changing names, disguising himself, sliding into her life like a shadow into a corner. "This house is me," he said, stepping closer. "Every hallway, a memory. Every door, a version of the girls I took. Every mirror, a piece of you I wore." She turned to run. The floor stretched, grew beneath her. No matter how fast she ran, the hallway grew longer. Behind her, he kept talking. "You made me stronger every time you ignored your gut. Every time you silenced yourself. Every time you let me in." The light above her blinked. She collapsed. Through a door without even realizing it had opened. She landed in a room full of faces, walls plastered in photographs, all of them almost Sophie. Girls who looked like her, smiled like her, some with dyed hair, others with freckles or scars. Each had a name and a date written beneath. None of the dates were after 2019, and some names she recognized, missing persons. Women she'd seen on posters, Reddit threads, cold case TikToks, Janelle, Abby, Lacey, Claire, Tasha, and in the middle of the room a mannequin dressed in Sophie's clothes, her scarf, her earrings, even her scent, perfume she hadn't worn in months. The face was a mask of her own, realistic, terrifying. A speaker clicked on overhead. "This is how they forget you," the voice said. "They make copies, dolls, stories. They keep your memory, but not your truth." Then the mannequin turned its head, moved, and stared at her. "We didn't leave," it whispered. "We were replaced." Sophie's stomach twisted. The house wasn't just showing her horror. It was rebuilding her identity, warping it. Every girl before her had been rewritten, erased from the world, left here to rot while the stalker, the shapeshifter, wore their skin and stepped into their lives. And soon, it would be her unless she broke the cycle, unless she found room 0, the room from the map that wasn't numbered, the center, where it all began. The mannequin reached toward her with her own fingers. Sophie turned and smashed through another door. She fell down a flight of stairs, but the landing didn't hurt. It was soft, almost alive. A vast circular room surrounded her, red velvet walls, a domed ceiling painted with dozens of faces, all twisted in agony. A chair sat at the center, not a throne, more like an altar, and in it sat an old woman, motionless, pale. Her body sunken and dry like something mummified, but her eyes were open and weeping. Sophie approached carefully. On the wall behind the woman were dozens of keys, each with a tag, each labeled with a room. One of them glowed faintly. Room 0. Sophie reached out. The old woman's eyes flicked toward her. "Don't. Set him free," she whispered, voice like dried leaves. "He needs a body to leave. He needs your face." Sophie froze. "What happens if I take the key?" "Then you'll see the first lie he ever told." And the last girl who said no. The lights above dimmed. Sophie didn't ask again. She grabbed the glowing key and turned, running through the next door. Room 0 was a coffin, not literally, but it felt like one. Cramped, underground, cement walls, a surgical table, chains on the walls, photos pinned up in messy grids, audio reels, blood-stained notebooks. Everything smelled like bleach, sweat, and copper. And in the corner, a single VHS player, one tape already loaded, labeled "Before Sophie, After Lucy." She pressed play, the screen flickered to life. Home footage, a man, Nathan's body but not quite his face, stood in front of a mirror, adjusting a fake beard. A wig, contact lenses, practicing lines. "Hi, I'm Jeremy." "No, I go. By Nathan now. I'm just looking for something real. Tell me about you." Clip jump him sitting in front of a wall covered in monitors, watching girls, dozens of feeds, living rooms, bedrooms, showers. Another clip, a girl tied to a chair, crying, whispering, "Why me?" And him, the thing in Nathan's skin, smiling wide. "Because you looked at me, that's enough." Sophie turned away, gagging. The final frame of the tape, a photo of her. From months before she'd ever matched with Nathan, crossed with a red marker. Final. She'll remember. She fell to her knees. It had never been chance. It had been planned. Long before she knew him, she was the last piece of some sick puzzle. The final transformation. And now the house wanted her to know, because the walls began to bleed. A voice boomed through the room. "We are ready. Give us your skin. We will give you peace." Sophie stood, blood dripping from her palms. From her ribs, she looked at the mirror in the corner. Her eyes still hers, her mouth still whole, not yet broken. And in her trembling hand, the map. One room left. A final unlabeled door on the map, just marked with a symbol, an eye. Below it, etched in blood, "See the truth or stay forever." She didn't hesitate. She kicked open the last door and stepped through, the eye that watches all. The door groaned open, and Sophie stepped into silence. No whispers, no footsteps, no walls breathing like flesh. Just stillness. The room was vast, impossibly so, a cathedral of darkness. Yet it pulsed with a low hum, like a heart buried deep beneath the earth. The walls were stone now, ancient, blackened by fire or time or memory. In the center of the room stood a single obsidian pillar, and embedded at its top was a glass orb, the eye. It didn't blink, it didn't move, but Sophie knew it was watching, and somehow it had always been watching. She took one cautious step closer, her breath fogged in front of her. The air was freezing now, and thick with something unseen. Her thoughts began to blur. She could no longer tell if she was walking or if the floor was moving beneath her. The eye seemed closer with every blink, though her feet stayed still. Then a voice filled the chamber. Not Nathan's, not the house's, not even human. "You are the final vessel. The story ends when you stop running." The orb flickered, and the room began to shift. The walls folded like paper. Reality peeled away. Sophie gasped as the space around her rewound. Not in time, but in truth. She was suddenly back in her childhood bedroom, again, but now watching herself from above, as if unseen, like a god or a ghost. She saw herself, 6 years old, now standing stiff in the middle of the room, not crying, not scared, just still, and the closet door opened, not by a hand, but by will. Something crawled out, not a man, not even a creature, just a shadow with a face, and it whispered into Sophie's tiny ear, "No one sees you, but I do." Little Sophie didn't flinch, didn't move. She turned to the shadow and she smiled. Adult Sophie's heart stopped. That moment, it wasn't fear, it wasn't trauma, it was the beginning, the moment she let something in. They, seen blurred again. Now she saw herself in high school, a boy breaking up with her at lunch, her staring at the table, silent. And just behind her, that same shape watching from the shadows, feeding, thriving. Then again, in college, crying in her dorm after a professor touched her shoulder a little too long. Nobody believed her. But it was there, the same shape, growing, learning her, shaping her. The voice spoke again. "You summoned me with silence. You nurtured me with loneliness. Now, let me wear you completely." Sophie dropped to her knees, clutching her head. No, but the truth was like poison now, coursing through her brain. Nathan, Jeremy, all of them, weren't separate people. They were masks, worn by the same entity, one that had latched onto her long ago, and now it wanted to become her. Not to replace her life, but to rewrite her into its final form. The perfect host. The eye blinked, for the first time. The room cracked open like a shell. From behind the walls, the other girls emerged. Janelle, Lacey, Tasha, Claire, Abby, all of them stitched and frayed and broken. They weren't ghosts, they weren't alive, they were fragments. Memories devoured, now leaking back into the open. They formed a circle around Sophie, each mouthing a silent plea. End it. Don't let it take you. We couldn't stop it. You still can. Sophie looked down at her hands. They were beginning to fade, flesh turning to shadow. It was already happening. The eye glowed, louder now, like a chorus of whispers in her blood. You're tired of being afraid. Let go. Be whole. Be me. She stood, staggering, and screamed, I am not you! The eye shattered, not from her words, but from something behind it. A shape stepped forward, the original girl, the first, the one who came before them all. Lucy, she was frail, her face torn at the edges like a paper mask, but her voice carried a strength the house had forgotten. I built this prison to contain it, and every time one of us let it feed, it broke a little more free. She looked at Sophie. You're the last, the only one strong enough to see every truth and still resist, so now you have a choice. Behind Lucy, a door appeared, one final exit. But beside Sophie, another mirror had formed, and inside it, her but changed, stronger, colder, her skin smoother, ageless, beautiful in an inhuman way. Take me in, said her reflection, and you'll never be afraid again. No one will ever hurt you. You'll be the one who watches, the one who decides the pain ends here, if you let me win. The eye pulsed one last time. The entity inside Sophie whispered, Let me love you. Sophie reached forward, both hands stretched, one to the mirror, one to the door. Time stopped, and then she grabbed the mirror and shattered it. The room screamed, light poured from every crack. The eye shrieked, the walls convulsed, the shadow inside her clawed and begged. But Sophie held firm. She wasn't denying it out of fear. She was embracing herself, her rage, her grief, her history, but she would never let something wear her. Pain, like a mask. As the mirror cracked, every name carved into the walls burst into flame. The girls' faces lifted. The spell, the cycle, was breaking. Sophie turned to Lucy. Go, Lucy said, her eyes filling with tears. You gave us peace. Sophie sprinted for the door as the house collapsed behind her. It screamed with every soul it lost. The door slammed shut, and for the first time in years, silence. True silence. She awoke in her apartment, alone. The air was still, real. Sunlight streamed through the window, her phone buzzed, dozens of missed calls. The world hadn't stopped. It had just gone on without her. She looked in the mirror. No shadow behind her, no voice in her mind. Just Sophie, whole, changed, but alive. Some shadows stay. 3 weeks had passed since Sophie escaped the house. The first thing she did when she got back, delete her dating apps. The second, change the locks, twice. The third, she didn't tell anyone where she'd been. Not the cops, not her co-workers, not even her sister. Because there was no evidence, no house in the woods, no broken mirrors, no girls trapped in stitched-up memory loops. Just her, alive, breathing, and not entirely sure if any of it was real. But the bruises remained. So did the scar down her ribcage, where the map had once been carved into her skin, now faded, but never erased. And some nights, when the world grew quiet and her heart slowed just enough, she swore she still felt something, watching, not from outside, from inside. She moved cities, changed jobs, new apartment, one window, no closets. She only used lamps, never overhead lights. She kept a mirror covered in every room, just in case, and most days she passed as normal. She smiled at the barista. She texted her sister. Jokes. She took long walks alone, but there was a hollowness to her that hadn't been there before, the kind of emptiness that only comes when you've seen yourself from the other side, when you've looked in a mirror and seen something smiling too wide. One night she came home late, rain, thunder, a kind of chill that reminded her of the hallway in that house, the way it breathed. She kicked off her shoes, turned on her lamp, and walked to the mirror in her bedroom, still covered, still safe. She hesitated, just for a second, and then, slowly, peeled the cover back. Her own reflection stared back at her. No tricks, no smile, no shadows. She sighed. Relief and unease all tangled into one. She turned away, and her reflection didn't. She froze, turned, back. Her reflection stood completely still, except now its head tilted, just slightly. Her heart pounded. "Not again," she whispered. The reflection smiled, and then, behind the glass, another voice whispered, "You think it ends, just because you leave the house. Sweet girl, I am the house. I was never a place. I was always a part of you." Sophie staggered back, knocking over her lamp. The room fell into darkness. The mirror pulsed once, then cracked, not shattering, just splintering, and from those splinters, faces stared back. Janelle, Abby, Claire, Lucy, all the girls she thought she'd freed. "He's still hungry," they said. "You broke the prison. You didn't kill the prisoner. Now he's everywhere. He's watching through you." Sophie fell to her knees, screaming, "No! I ended this. I broke the cycle. And then silence. Her reflection. Gone. No girls, no splinters, just the room. Just her. She crawled to the window, trembling, desperate for any sign of the real world. And outside, nothing looked wrong. A couple arguing down the street. A delivery driver dropping off Thai food. A dog barking at thunder. Just life. Just reality. So why did it still feel like a lie? She grabbed her phone, opened her voice memos, and hit record. "I don't know if this is still happening," she whispered, "but if anyone finds this, please don't go to the woods. Don't follow a map. Don't swipe right on someone who seems a little too perfect." Her voice cracked. "And if you feel like something's watching you, it probably is." The phone buzzed in her hand. A new Tinder match. She hadn't reinstalled it. She hadn't touched that app in weeks. She stared, frozen. The profile name, Jeremy. His bio, looking for someone who remembers who they really are. "Let's finish what we started." Her hand moved on its own. Thumb hovered over the screen. One swipe would mean everything. One mistake, and she knew he'd be back inside her again. The screen glitched. The profile changed. Now it was her face, Sophie, but smiling in a way she never had. The eyes empty, the grin too wide. The background, that hallway again. She dropped the phone. It buzzed one more time. A message from "You, welcome back." The mirror behind her shattered completely. No reflection, just a black doorway, and from within it, footsteps. Sophie stood, shaking. She'd run once. She'd escaped once. But this time, she knew better. You don't run from something that's part of you. You look it in the eye. She stepped toward the broken mirror, one foot into the dark, and whispered, "You want me? You finish it. I'm not afraid of you anymore." The darkness whispered back, "That's what they all say, right before they scream." And then the black closed around her. 1 year later, police found her apartment empty. No sign of forced entry, just a broken mirror, a buzzing phone, and an open voice memo. The last words on it, "Some houses you never leave. Some stalkers don't need to follow you. Because sometimes they're already inside. The end."